Okay, I think we'll get going. Great to see so many of you on the call, and quite a number of you I know. So hello and good to see you. And for those who I don't know, I'm Chris Morton. I work as Deputy Director of Finance and Business Assurance at Digital Health and Care Wales. Really pleased to be here today to introduce you to this webinar. So we are here to celebrate the launch of the Health Anchors Learning Network across Wales. And this is a new resource helping people working in health and care across Wales to make impact through anchor approaches to work. And don't worry if you're not familiar with the anchor term, because that will all be explained in this session. The Health Anchors Learning Network, just a bit of background to it, was established in February 2021 with some funding support from the NHS and the Health Foundation, and it actually operates across the UK. It provides spaces and opportunities for participants to work in partnership to improve the social determinants of health and help to reduce health inequalities. And I think for us in Wales, that's particularly prevalent because it links really closely with some of the wider policies and legislation, such as the Foundational Economy programme and also the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. And some specific work that this will be aligned to and help to support further include the Foundational Economy NHS Leadership Group, which is led by Hugh Thomas as Director of Finance at HALN University Health Board. It also links into some of the work we've been doing through the NHS Wales Finance Academy with the Foundational Economy All Wales Learning and Development Group, which I've chaired for the past few years. And finally, there's some opportunities to get involved in some activities, and we have a series of learning sets that are being advertised by the Finance Academy, and those are coming up later in the autumn, and there'll be further details on that throughout the session. So that's just a brief overview. In terms of this session, again, feel free to keep your cameras on. There is a chat function. You can ask questions in the chat, or you can put your hand up at the end of each of the sessions that we've got. And just to let you know, we are recording this session as well, so it will be available for playback afterwards. Okay, so just in terms of some of the specifics that we're going to cover today, we welcome a number of presenters and really privileged to have some great examples here. Firstly, we'll hear about the new learning network, and Ollie Clayton will be speaking to us. Ollie's from the Innovation Unit, and he'll be talking to us about what an anchor organisation is, what does it mean to take an anchor approach, and how does that help to reduce inequalities. We're also really pleased that we've got Naz and Jenny joining us from the Mid and South Essex NHS Foundation Trust. So Jenny Garrett is the Senior Anchor Project Manager, and Nazia Ali is the Anchor Project Manager, and they're going to be taking us through a case study from their NHS Trust. And also closer to home, really pleased to be joined by Dr. Tom Porter, who's a consultant in public health medicine, who works at the Cardiff and Vale Health Board and with Public Health Wales, who's going to be talking to us about the Healthy Travel Charters. So I think that's enough from me, and hopefully that gives you an overview for the session and what we're going to cover. Really looking forward to getting into this now. So I'm going to hand over to Ollie to take us through the Health Anchors Learning Network and give us an overview of what it means to be an anchor organisation. Thanks, Ollie.
Thank you, Chris. Now, can I just check before I start? Can you see my screen okay? And can you hear me okay?
Yes, and yes, for me.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so yeah, hi everyone. So as Chris said, I'm Ollie, and I'm part of the team that runs the Health Anchors Learning Network, both across the UK, but also this new Wales-specific network that we're launching today, which I'm really excited to tell you more about in a second. But to kick off, I thought it'd be good to step back and focus on some of the core concepts that we're talking about here. So what is an anchor organisation, and what does it mean to take an anchor approach? So when we talk about anchor organisations, what we mean is large, locally rooted organisations that have a major influence on the health and well-being of the communities in which they serve. So they're usually major employers in their local area, as well as having significant assets and spending power. And so the types of organizations we're talking about are NHS organizations, local authorities, large universities and colleges, some select large third sector organizations. And historically, the anchor term has been used to discuss public sector organizations, but more and more we're talking, we're seeing businesses stepping into the role of being anchor organizations, especially large businesses with a strong link to the local area. And it's that strong link to the local area which is really key. So these are really large organizations that they're not going to move, and they have a significant social, economic, and environmental impact within their local communities. And what do we mean by health anchors? Because obviously what we're here talking today is we're looking at the Health Anchors Learning Network. So by health anchors, we simply mean the many NHS and other health and care organisations across Wales that are anchor organisations within their communities. And through their size and scale, these organisations can positively contribute to local areas in many ways beyond providing healthcare. So we're looking beyond healthcare provision, and we're thinking about those wider levers that these large organizations have at their disposal to create a positive benefit in their local community. Now I'm going to come on to what we mean by taking an anchor approach. So many large organizations, there'll be major employers and they'll spend lots of money and they'll be having an impact on their local community, but there won't necessarily be a conscious strategy around how they are kind of leveraging those resources to create positive impacts. So by taking an anchor approach, we basically mean anchor organizations consciously and actively using their assets and influence to support the long-term well-being of local communities, and particularly aiming at addressing local inequalities. Now, we know from our work across the UK, working with organizations, that often they're already doing a lot of the activities that we now refer to as kind of anchor activities. So this is something that you will maybe doing in your organization. So for example, putting social value requirements in contracts, or leading local recruitment drives. So these are all activities that we would call anchor activities, and lots of this is happening already within systems. But taking an anchor approach is really trying to kind of join these up into a coordinated organization-wide approach in order to maximize positive local impact. And more what we're seeing across the health and care sector is anchor organizations coming up with dedicated anchor strategies, which bring together these different activities from different kind of corporate functions, different teams. And also we're seeing these anchor organizations working closely with other anchor organizations, so working with their local council or with local business to pool resources and kind of collaborate on joint initiatives. And we're also seeing the voluntary sector play a really important role. More often than not, it's the voluntary sector that are embedded within local communities that have the greatest insight into where anchor organizations can really make a difference. Now I'm going to come on to some of the ways in which health anchors can make a difference. So this is an infographic that was created by the Health Foundation 4 or 5 years ago when they were first commissioned by NHS England to launch a report into the role of the NHS as an anchor. So you'll notice some of the statistics talk about England, but I mean the headlines are very much applicable to Wales. So the types of activities we tend to talk about when we're looking at this work is encouraging NHS organisations to purchase more locally to support local businesses and social enterprises to grow and hire more people locally, and also to really drive up the social benefit that is being realised through purchases. So that's thinking about really leveraging those social value approaches and frameworks to create as much positive benefit in local communities as possible. It's also thinking about how the NHS uses its buildings and spaces to support communities. So whether that's sharing space with local community groups to give them that kind of infrastructure to put on activities that are going to benefit the community, or whether it's opening up green spaces for use by the wider community. Another key area that we tend to talk about in this space is the role of the NHS in widening access to quality work. So that's things like, building the future workforce, so inspiring local young people with the potential of health and care careers, widening workforce participation, so ensuring that career opportunities within local NHS organisations are inclusive to all, and really thinking in detail about how you can bring in more of those currently underrepresented groups into good jobs in the NHS to ensure that the NHS is acting to address those inequalities. And it's also about being a good employer to the staff that you already employ, ensuring that there's equal opportunity to progress and that you're looking after staff well-being as part of your recruitment and employment practices. So those are some of the activities that we tend to talk about when we're looking at anchor work. For people who are interested in digging in to a bit more detail around the types of activities that NHS organisations tend to focus on within each of those headline categories, I'd really recommend this resource from UCL Partners. So this is a measurement toolkit which lists the types of outputs and outcomes that organisations usually focus on across the core activity areas that I just identified. And importantly, it starts to develop some indicators that organisations can use to track progress. So within workforce, it gives you metrics around tracking how representative your workforce is compared with the local communities in the area that you operate. And it gives organizations a way of kind of tracking their progress across these core metrics. So I'll share the slide deck after this, and you can have take a look at that link and dig into this area in a bit more detail. But hopefully that gives a flavor of some of what we're talking about when we talk about the role of the NHS as an anchor and how it can use these various levers to drive impact and reduce local inequalities. And I'm now going to just go back to this slide before. So as well as those kind of, we talked about procurement, we talked about using buildings and estates, we talked about widening access to quality work. It's also about working really closely with local partners. So the NHS being a good partner in the places in which it works. And it's also about reducing the environmental impact of the NHS to ensure that people are living in sustainable and kind of healthy environments. Now, Chris has already mentioned some of the links between the kind of anchor approach and some of these wider policy initiatives. So I just thought I'd pull these out in a bit more detail now. So we know that anchor institutions are really key players in reorienting the economy toward meeting everyday needs and building local resilience. So NHS Wales is the largest employer in the country. It's got a presence in every community. And so by actively taking an anchor approach, NHS organisations across Wales can support the wider social and economic development needed to ensure that everyone is able to access what they need to live a good life. And there is a range of other policy initiatives that this anchor approaches link into. So some of you may be aware that just like Wales is really honing on this foundational economy approach, in Scotland they've got a community wealth building bill that's just gone through, which requires public sector organisations to think about their role in supporting community wealth building. And again, their health anchors play a vital role by using their power and their influence to create fairer and more inclusive local economies. So ensuring that more kind of money circulates and stays within local systems. So that's covering kind of what health anchors are and what anchor approaches are. I'm now quickly going to talk about the UK-wide network, and then we'll talk about the new network that we're launching today. So as Chris said, the Health Anchors Learning Network, what we call HALN, has been around for a few years now. I recommend checking it out. There's lots of fantastic case studies and blogs and learning tools there. And it's initially focused on the NHS, but it's recently broadened its focus to support local authorities and increasingly businesses as well. But we really felt that a dedicated learning network for Wales would be really beneficial, building on the learning of the UK-wide network, but tailored to a Welsh context. And so we really want to work with you and other organisations and partners to really pull out some fantastic examples of what this looks like in Wales and shine a light on existing good practice. And this is a joint programme between myself and the team that runs HALN UK. and Chris and the wider team at the NHS Wales Finance Academy. And it's also directly linked to supporting the foundation economy. So we're hoping that we can, through this work, develop the skills and tool sets that colleagues across NHS Wales need to build effective anchor organisations and develop effective anchor approaches as part of their commitment to the foundational economy programme. And then thinking about what the network's actually going to do. So we're going to be doing a range of activities over the next few months. So there will be public events like this one, so webinars that will focus in on particular areas, for example, how to measure the impact of your anchor, how to develop anchor strategies, how to build leadership support for anchor work. We're also going to run a dedicated learning set, which I'll talk a bit more about in a second. And we've already created a learning site, which I will show you in a second as well. And that will be full of learning tools and resources. And there'll be case studies there as well, both from Wales and from across the UK and beyond. And there's also a link there to sign up for our newsletter, so you can stay up to date on what we're doing as part of this network, so that you can ensure that you can stay involved. So in terms of immediate steps, I would really encourage people to visit the website. I think Lauren's going to drop some links into the chat now. So visit the website. If you've got an NHS email, you should be able to access it without a problem. If you're not part of the NHS and you're joining the call today, you have to register as a guest, and then you can join the website. It's hosted at the Learning at Wales website. Once you're there, do sign up to the newsletter so you can stay in the loop about upcoming events and new resources and publications that we're making available to you. And for those of you interested in the learning set, Lauren's also going to drop a link to the learning set. So the learning set is going to be a closed group that meets bi-monthly over the coming months. And it's for people who work in the health sector in Wales who are either currently responsible for or interested in embedding anchor approaches in your work. Now, it might be that you're already doing this, but it's not under the name anchor. You might just be doing it within an existing foundation economy program. That's totally fine. But it's really for practitioners who are kind of actively involved in the work, so that we can reflect on what some of the enablers are, what some of the barriers are, and we can kind of work together as a group over the next few months. So if you're interested in joining that, do go and register your interest for that learning set. And we'll be in touch with updates on that soon. That's all from me. If you've got any questions, drop them in the chat and I'll respond to you in the chat. But for now, I want to stop talking. I want to introduce some speakers. Oh, wait, no, I did actually say I was going to briefly give you a snapshot of the website. So let me do that now. So yeah, so you can see the website here. So it's got links to some of the events and trainings that we're running, links to case studies. We've compiled a long list of existing useful resources from across the web that already exist around this. And there's more information around kind of what this initiative is and how you can get started as an anchor. So that's the website. I'm going to stop now and we're going to hear some examples of what this looks like in practice. So I'm now going to hand over to my friends from Mid and South Essex NHS Foundation Trust, who have been doing this work for a number of years now and have made fantastic progress on their anchor programme. So Naz, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ollie. Thanks for having myself and Jenny. I will just get my slides ready. Sorry, just bear with me a second. I'll share my screen. I'm not sure if it's okay. Ollie, I can only see you on my screen. Can you give me a thumbs up?
I can see your screen fine.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'll introduce myself. I am Naz and I am the Anchor Project Manager and the Strategy Unit at Mid South Essex NHS Foundation Trust. Thank you so much for having me here today, Ollie. Jenny, I will let you come in and if you want to introduce yourself and I will share the slides and get moving.
Thanks, Naz. And hi everybody, so my name is Jenny Garrett. I'm a Senior Anchor Project Manager at our Anchor Programme at Mid and South Essex NHS Foundation Trust. And Naz and I are here today to talk to you about our Anchor Programme and our journey to date. You'll see across the screen some of our annual reports that we've produced so far. We will be sharing links of those at the end. So we wanted to start by just giving you a sort of brief background, and Ollie's covered really well what an anchor institution is. But for us at Mid and South Essex NHS Foundation Trust, we do identify as one of those large organisations, not-for-profits, really rooted within their communities. And the approach that's really important to us is about being able to use our assets and our spending power to maximise the impact for our local population. So being able to reduce health inequalities and improve health outcomes. And the image to the right there, I always think is really useful in just trying to visualise what it is that an anchor does. So just pulling out a couple of those. When we think about our land and buildings, as a trust, we have 3 main hospital sites at Basildon, Southend and Brimfield. We serve a population of 1.2 million people. So if we're able to share some of that space that we have with our community partners, that's able to extend their reach and potentially offer new and more joined up services to our patients. And when we think about employment, we employ 17,000 people as a trust. So we are one of the largest employers in our area. Not only does that give us the ability to employ locally, but to really think about those who have barriers to employment and to reach into some of our most disadvantaged areas. Can we go to the next slide, Naz? Thought it might be useful to just give you a little taster, I guess, of our journey, because I think when you look at those 5 pillars and all the possibilities of what you could do, it can be quite daunting. So for us, our journey started back in 2019, and that foundational phase really was about building those relationships with our partners. We started initially just at one hospital site at Basildon before we later expanded across to the whole of MSE. And we started developing our original anchor charter, which our partners were able to sign up to, as well as our dashboards, which are really important in us being able to track, monitor and evidence the work that we're doing. For 21 to 23, we started to see some expansion. So this was the start of our first really big anchor piece of work, which was Anchor Ambition, a pre-employment programme that was funded from the Community Renewal Fund. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. We also looked at formalising our monthly anchor institution meetings, which is an opportunity for local groups to come together, share their learning and also collaborate on future projects. 23-24 see a sort of innovation phase for us where we sort of stretched into some new territory. So it saw the launch of Social Spark, which is an innovation incubator that we're involved in partnership with our local authorities and Anglia Ruskin University. And with that, we're really trying to support communities to identify for themselves what their healthcare issues are and then work with health professionals and local partners to develop some of those solutions, which we hope will be truly unique and tailored for Basildon's needs. That project has just secured some funding from National Institute of Healthcare Research for a community research and innovation facility, which is going to be a really exciting next step for us next year. We also see projects such as Youth Work in Hospitals start up. So this is delivered by our colleagues in the youth service and sees them on site at A&E working with some of the most vulnerable young people that come through those doors and providing them some ongoing support once they leave that hospital. And Dr. Me, again, led by our partners at Anglia Ruskin University, that goes into schools and offers health education. 24 and 25 is now this scaling and sustainability phase. So we're looking back at our anchor ambition and our pre-employment work and working out how that now evolves and moves forward. We're looking at social value initiatives, as well as strengthening those partnerships that are already in place.
Thank you, Jenny. So as Jenny mentioned, our 5 key pillars, which is employment, procurement, land and building, sustainability and partnership. What I've done is I've sort of mapped out the projects against the year of 24-25 and sort of which projects fall into each of our pillars and the work that we are actually doing against it. So for example, in employment, we've got paid placement. Jenny has mentioned about Dr. Me, and I lead on Dr. Me, on the Dr. Me project with AIU. We've got Anchor, Ambition and Multiply. Procurement, we've got social values and social spark. Land and buildings, we've got values and outcomes work that we're looking at into this year. Youth work in hospital, Safe for Basildon's Women's Safety Charter. Sustainability, we've got our big project of Essex Pedal Power, which I will take a deep dive in upcoming slides. And partnerships of all the activities that we're currently doing. So we've got our Anchor board activity, our Anchor institutions monthly meetings. We've done our big work around veterans accreditation, and that is still ongoing. And we've got ARC research, so community insights into avoidable attendance and at Basildon A&E. So this is just, I guess, a glimpse of all of the projects per pillar that we sort of map and look at and we're working on. And most of these projects are still sort of ongoing into this financial year of 25 and 26. Once we finish sort of presenting, I will drop our Anchor's 4th annual report, and you can have a look at all of the projects that we've referenced in here if you wanted a bit of a deep dive as well.
And so we'll do a little bit of a deeper dive into our Anchor Ambition work. So this is our pre-employment programme, probably the cornerstone of our work really in the Anchor programme at MSc. So this is a programme set up to provide pre-employment support for anyone who is unemployed or economically inactive in our area, and to provide them with support to find a job within our trust or the wider healthcare sector. Really, this came off the back of COVID-19 and the recognition that there were lots of people who were displaced from their roles, particularly if you think about people in hospitality, for example, who have amazing transferable skills but wouldn't necessarily think about having a place within the NHS. I think what we found through this exercise was that lots of people only think of clinical roles when they think of the NHS, so they, don't acknowledge the other 350 roles that we have. But they also find the recruitment process a real challenge. So even filling out the online application form was a major barrier for lots of people. So we were able to pull together a small group of employment support officers who worked really closely with individuals that wanted to find work. So working with them to understand what it was they're looking for, what was their previous experience, and how could we match it into something that we have within the trust. Quite often that then meant we sat and filled out their application forms for them, and that can take 2 hours to do. It's quite a long-winded process. Then giving them interview skills and all the prep they need, so then when they go for their interview, they're ready for it. Because actually NHS recruitment and interview is so different to what many people will have experienced before. And there were those individuals who were a little further from the job market, who maybe needed training and support, and we were able to link up with our other partners to be able to provide that as a collaborative, all working together. And so as of December, we've had just under 800 participants participants signed up to the programme with 188 job offers. So a really fantastic result for those groups of people. But more than just providing jobs, as you'll see from those stats there, we've been able to provide jobs in the most disadvantaged areas to people with disabilities and those from minority ethnic groups. And we look forward to the future evolution of this project. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenny. And just to highlight, we also were won the NHS Parliamentary Award for Anchor Ambition, and we were also the winners of innovative awards. So I will move on now and do the other updates my end. So we are very fortunate in our strategy team to have Maya, who's our analyst and has developed this amazing Anchors workforce dashboard. I've linked it to our employment pillar and picked up from UCLP's toolkit the 3 indicators that we should be evidencing our work against. And this dashboard is really, really effective that Maya has made, and it really helps us, as Jenny mentioned, to track our work and evidence our work. So Maya helps us with this on a monthly basis. We can get data if we want. We can get it every quarter. And as you can see, it's really broken down into a number of staff that are living local to MSC or outside of MSC. Is broken down in gender, age, ethnicity. We can even break it down into bandings of our NHS staff, and it really does help us give that deep dive into looking into stats into our employment section. So this is just a bit of a hint and flavour that I've given what we've actually developed in our strategy department. So I think the advice from my end would be, if Wales wanted to sort of implement something like this, do get in touch and we can sort of help you and talk you through our workforce dashboard in a bit of detail. Okay, Essex Pedal Power. This is my favourite project. I lead on this, and I'm very, very proud of this initiative that I'm part of as an Anchor project manager. So in essence, what is Essex Pedal Power? It's simply just giving free bikes to our staff that are on bands 2 to 4 living in Basildon, but we've now opened up the scheme. So initially it was giving free bikes to staff, band staff 2 to 4 working and living in Basildon, but we've now opened it up to staff that work across any of our 3 sites, so that could be Southend or Broomfield Hospital, but still living in Basildon. So we are still targeting the disadvantaged area. Essex Pedal Power has been a huge success. As you can see, I've labelled this as phase 2. Phase 1 sort of started a year before I was in post. So these stats, in phase 2, we secured 95 bikes, and in phase 1, we secured 150 bikes, and they just went immediately, which was a really good outcome for the project. Essex Pedal Power, it is a partnership between Essex County Council, the Active Wellbeing Society, and Anchor obviously supports this project as well. Some of the key highlights I've actually listed at the bottom. So it fits very neatly into our employment pillar as well, as much as it fits into the sustainability pillar. It's helped staff with their wellness, reductions in feeling lonely, increased access, increased activity, increased life satisfaction, and increased their health as well. What I do know about the latest stats with Essex Pedal Power, I think we've only got around 40 bikes that are left to give away now for the remaining of this year, and I think they will also be going really soon. The good thing about Essex Pedal Power is we did a lot of comms our end at Mid-South Essex. So I've put up one of the posters as an example. I was on site supporting the Active Wellbeing Society, who were doing giveaway days with our bikes. We do bike maintenance days to get a bit more awareness. We had the Green Week at Mid-South Essex, where we presented Essex Pedal Power. We are hoping and in the pipeline of expanding this work to Southend. So hopefully that's one of the other projects that I am putting a lot of effort into to get this sort of rolled out across Southend as well. So do have a look at the report for a bit more deep dive into Essex Pedal Power. And another thing, we also were shortlisted, for HSJ for Net Zero. So we were one of the finalists for our Essex Pedal Power project. So we put in our application last year and we were shortlisted. So I guess it's a win-win for us in both aspects. Just going to touch base really quickly on our partnership pillar and Anchor's engagement overall. So on the top right-hand side, in the year of 24-25, Anchor engaged with 1,786 people. That includes locally, nationally, regionally as well. And I guess in this slide, obviously, I've mentioned how much funding we have actually secured for the next financial year of 25-26, which is 375,000, which is across 8 impactful projects and in partnership as well. So that could be Essex County Council, that's with our Armed Forces Covenant Fund Trust. Partnership is definitely key, working with partners along to get projects going as well. I have given a little bit of a hint at the bottom across the 5 pillars, how much Anchor is engaged and involved with others. So for example, if we look at the employment pillar, we are in the health and wealth meetings. Myself and my line manager, Kevin, we set up a pre-employment advisory group meeting, which would take place once a month. You've got sustainability, we're part of Essex Better Power. Anchor is represented in a big conversation. There's also climate action awareness group that we represent from Anchor's perspective. And we were lucky to say we were also shortlisted and invited for IHF this year. So I've highlighted that Anchor put in some abstracts, and we got chose to speak about Anchor programme for a lightning talk presentation and poster. And our work for youth work in hospitals and paid placements has also been selected. This is the 48th IHF World Hospital Congress, which is taking place this year in November in Geneva. So again, we're really honoured to be invited for that this year as well. Lessons learned and next steps. I think overall, partnership and collaboration is key. Definitely partner up with local partners, get your work out there, engage, talk to people. What's worked really well for Anchor as well is having our regular Anchor institution monthly meetings. So we hold them virtually once a month. And it's an open network. It's a chance a chance for everyone to come in, share the best practice. Let's look at the 5 anchor pillars, what MSc FT currently doing, but also gives a chance to other people if they can learn and share and take some hints and tips. And I think that's really worked well. That's kept the momentum going and also really helping us build our relationships further. I would definitely say funding is a key element as well for Anchor to run its project successfully, have sustainability and stability. If you ever come across funding opportunities, definitely take up that opportunity and apply. And awards and submissions, don't be afraid to apply for these awards, even if you think you may not have enough evidence or you feel you haven't done enough of the work. Definitely take those opportunities and be recognized widely as well. So again, that makes more noise and awareness of what Anchor actually is and what it really does mean. Our next steps I've listed below. So I've done Fit for Future, the 10-year plan. I'm sure you all are aware of the 10-year plan. There are some commitments that actually relate to Anchor. It's not obviously mentioned or hasn't obviously got the name of Anchor mentioned into it, but what we do know in the Fit for Future 10-year plan, it's talking a lot about recruiting staff locally. And as Jenny mentioned, the example of our Anchor Ambition work as well. So that's something we're looking forward and how to expand that. We've got our widening access demonstrator that would also be coming into place very, very soon. And mapping out our indicators for the remaining of the year of 25-26. So I've put down UCLP's toolkit. We're looking at their indicators per our 5 anchor key pillars and really picking out indicators that us at MSc want to really, really focus on. Lastly, I will leave mine and Jenny's email addresses if you would like to get in touch with us. Do look at our website page. It is currently being slightly revamped, so please don't be alarmed. I am tweaking minor bits on that, but equally I will drop in the chat our 4th annual Anchor report. So lots of stuff in there, and I can also share with you our progress report if that helps. The progress report is slightly different. It will give you a bit of a deep dive into the projects that I showcased in the 4th slide of this presentation of what we're doing, where we are with stuff as well. I will stop sharing and I'm happy to take questions down. Thank you.
That's fabulous. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Naz. Thank you so much for that. A really comprehensive overview and presentation. We do have time for just a quick question before we move on to the next. So, yes, Richard.
Sorry, problems with my mute button. I'm just wondering, have you had the opportunity to reach out to private sector organisations yet for support in terms of particularly what they've learned in supporting their local employment opportunities, and also from the point of view of funding?
So we haven't in that way yet, albeit our Anchor Ambition programme really took a hit when we sort of pulled back on some of our NHS recruitment, and we did end up in a situation where we had lots of job seekers, but not an awful lot of jobs within the trust. So some of the things that we are looking at now is working with our procurement teams and that social value element. So obviously there is a line that sits in there around employment and how we can link those things together. So maybe offering our services out to some of those organisations that sit within our supply chain. We are, through our Social Spark work, we are just starting to investigate those possibilities of things like commercial sponsorship that may provide some sustainable finance for us going forward. At the moment, all the elements of our programme are funded. So, you know, we're constantly going through those cycles of looking for funding, we run a programme and then looking for the next round. So it's really sort of high up on our agenda at the moment to look at those other avenues that might be out there that could support this work going forward.
Thank you.
Great, thanks Richard, and thanks Jenny for the response. Thank you also for sharing your contact details. And would it be okay if we offered, again, if people do have questions, to contact you
Absolutely,
directly?
that's fine.
That would be fantastic. Thank you very much. I am just slightly conscious of time. We've got another presentation that we'd like to get through within the hour that we have. So thanks again, Naz and Jenny. And I'd like to introduce again now Dr. Tom Porter, a consultant in public health medicine, who's been working with the Cardiff and Vale Health Board and Public Health Wales, who's going to talk to us about the Healthy Travel Charters. So over to you, Tom. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Chris. Afternoon, everyone. I'm really grateful to be here, and hopefully you'll find this interesting. I'm going to talk a little bit about some work I've been doing over the last few years related to sustainable travel. So actually I was interested in the Essex Pedal Power project. Sounds really exciting. So I'll give you a little bit of background on it and then the detail of the work I've been involved with. So just a quick canter through that. So some of the background, and some of this is obvious perhaps to people, but only when you think about it do you think this is a bit bonkers. So over the past 50, 60 years, how we get around as a society has changed massively. So this graph shows the transport mode for people across Great Britain. And you can see since the 1950s, this bluey colour here, bluey greeny colour here, which is cars and taxis, private vehicles, has increased massively as a share of travel mode. And actually, just to put that into context, that's a 2,000% increase over that period. And the importance of that is that not only is that more people sitting in a car or a taxi and not being active, but it shapes our environment around us. So if all of you just think about the environment that you live and you work in, an awful lot of that physical environment is now shaped around a car. And so even if we want to walk or cycle or get public transport, there's often a lot of barriers in the way because we've built our environment around it. So think out of town shopping centres, think where employment centres are, and so on. And the impacts from a health perspective are really important and really varied. So we often think about this one in the top left about physical inactivity and thinking about things like diabetes and obesity, and they are really important. But we quite often forget about road traffic injuries and deaths, and it's quite sobering to consider that even in this day and age, the commonest cause of death for a child in the UK is being hit by a motor car, which in a sense you might feel is obvious because you've got a 1 or 2 ton lump of metal versus a child, and there's going to be no contest. But we often focus on lots of other things and lots of other things that we think we can do something about, but forget about the fact that cars are still unfortunately hurting people and killing people every day. Reduction in green space is very important, and Related to that, climate change, which I'll come back to. Air pollution, we're learning more and more about air pollution and the adverse impacts on the health of people. And we know that across the whole of Western Europe, we've got a really significant air pollution problem, particularly in our urban areas. And the World Health Organization has recently changed its guidelines for acceptable levels that we should aim for around air pollution. And almost every urban area across Wales and across the UK are above that. And increase in loneliness and social isolation. I can go into more detail about that if people are interested, but there's a significant impact of the transport system and how we get around the impacts on that, and health inequality. So all of these other things are made worse in more deprived areas. So for example, that stat I gave you around the risk of a child dying being from a motor car, that's actually much higher in more deprived areas than in less deprived areas, even though in more deprived areas, car ownership is much lower due to the cost of cars. So coming to climate change briefly, so already this year, I mean, it's really difficult to go a day in the news now without seeing something related to extreme weather. So remember the fires back in LA earlier on this year? It already feels like a lifetime ago, but they were really uncontrollable fires, made much worse, and the frequency of those much more likely due to climate change. And just more locally, in the last 9 months in Wales, we've obviously had really bad flooding just last week. Over the next few weeks, we've seen huge changes in the weather, which I'm sure everyone can relate to. So what do we need to do from a transport perspective? The good news is that we know what we need to do. And in fact, we used to do an awful lot of this. We just need to almost roll back our society and work out how do we reintroduce these things. It will take time, but we can do it. So we need to support active travel and public transport. We need to reduce air pollution. This is really ultimately the key. We need to start redesigning our towns and new builds around attractive communities. So this is places where it's the easiest thing to do is to walk and cycle to places or take a bus, rather than at the moment the easiest thing usually is to get in the car. We need to protect our green space, take action on inequalities. And then I guess related to why we're here today, it's about providing leadership. And the NHS and other large anchor organisations are really ripe for doing this. So just for context, within Wales, it varies by local authority, but between 25% and a third, so in most local authorities, it's about 30% of people who are in work are employed within the public sector. So we've got a huge proportion of people who, if we can work with to change their travel mode, then will impact on our society as well. And we need to stand up at this really critical juncture, particularly around climate change, and take action. So the work I was involved with was to develop something called the Healthy Travel Charter. So this started off in Cardiff and Vale, where I have my substantive role. And as a result of developing these, it's now been rolled out across Wales. So each of these charters is a set of commitments, or 15 to 20 commitments, supporting agile working, walking and cycling, public transport use, and ultra low emission vehicle use. And these are commitments that public sector and other organisations take in an area and then work together on to meet those commitments. This was done through the public service boards in each area, taking a lead initially from the NHS. And in most areas, it's been NHS who have led on this. In some areas, there's been other organisations, universities and others who've led. But in each area, it's been co-produced. So the charters are slightly different in each area. They're achievable, but stretching. So trying to get in that sweet spot. And part of a much wider set of actions required. So this isn't the magic bullet, but hopefully it's part of that answer. And this is the reason for doing the charter. This is what we hope to achieve. So healthier, happier, more productive staff, improved air quality, reduce carbon emissions, and reduce health inequalities. I won't read this in detail, but just to say this is part of Welsh Government policy now and is featured in the carbon budget as well. And as of last week, we had our final area launch in Cymtarf. So all of Wales is now covered by a Healthy Travel Charter. We've got over 75 organisations signed up to the charters, covering every area of Wales. And again, I won't go into detail, but we've got lots of examples of impact across those organisations, really nice ones where we've had really high spec cycle storage and facilities put in place for people who want to travel actively, and working with bus companies in order to get bespoke bus routes for staff in particular health board areas, for example. And as I say, it's not just health board, it's councils, it's Natural Resources Wales, Welsh Government, lots of other public service employers in Wales. This is a very quick graph just showing an example of the journey that some of the organisations take. So this is in the Swansea Bay area. Each of these lines is a different organisation that signed up to the charter, and this is how many commitments they put into place. And I guess two things to note from this. One is all of the organisations have improved over time. So this is over a 3-year period or 2-year period. And the other is that they're all starting from a different place. So this is not about saying all the organisations are going to get it from day one. Everyone has got different barriers they face, but all of them can improve. So through this work, through the charters, working together, sharing good practice between each other in that local area, all the organisations have put more actions in place to support their staff. Lots of lessons learned. I've written up a case study which will be available as part of the Learning Network. And I guess just a couple to bring out here, something about co-producing, so working in each area and working with people in each area. And then in terms of the learning, something around how you keep that momentum up and the persistence and the patience. You know, these things take time. There's policy challenges, there's financial challenges, and you almost just have to put your head down and keep going. And sometimes when you put your head up again, suddenly there's more enthusiasm and there's not necessarily a rhyme and a reason to it, but actually if you give up too early, you've missed the opportunity. You just need to keep at it. Next phase of the charters, very briefly, is that we're going to have more national support. I'm working with Public Health Wales, Transport for Wales and Welsh Government. We're going to have a national steering group and a national offer to support all those organisations as well. And I guess my summary is action on transport brings multiple health benefits. So across all of those areas I've listed there, it really is a positive thing to do for health, but it also reduces CO2 emissions as well. So this is a win-win. So those are just some of the people I'll thank for supporting the work. Jochen Power, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tom. That's a great example. And again, one of our first case studies in Wales through the Health Anchors Learning Network that we're establishing here. So fantastic to see that. Just open it up now to any questions for Tom. Just while people are thinking, you mentioned co-production there, Tom. Who are the individuals, I suppose, that you've been working with locally across the organisations in Wales to take this forward? And have they been the same individuals across organisations or different? Who have you worked with locally, and how has that co-production happened?
So in each area, so we've got broadly regions which are consistent with the health boards, but not in every area. In each area, we've identified a local coordinator who then works with the partner organisations in that area. I liaise with the local coordinator, but the importance is it's owned and kind of developed in that area by people who know the area and live in the area. Within each of the host organisations, there will be different people who are involved. So sometimes you'll have estates involved, sustainable travel. Sometimes it's about HR, people and OD functions, that kind of equivalent. Sometimes it's public health. It really varies and depends. And I think that's one of the key things, again, is having that flexibility to recognise organisations are different. How we set things up are different. You almost have to identify those individuals who are the doers and in the right position to make that change in each local area.
That's great, thanks. And I suppose, again, considering the landscape of Wales, then again, this is probably going to need to be quite tailored from a rural perspective and our sort of area in West Wales, maybe to the more urban locations of Swansea, Cardiff and Wrexham.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so the charter looks different in each of the areas. There's a lot of commonality, but things like more of a focus on car share, on EVs in some of the more rural areas, and a bigger focus on active travel and public transport in areas where we've got better facilities for those.
Fabulous, thank you. Okay, any final questions from anyone? Yes, Gwar.
Hello, hi, thanks Chris. Hi Tom,
Hiya.
my name's Gwawr, I'm Head of Value-Based Healthcare at Felindra. My question related to just an understanding of the challenges that you faced with this programme of work, and in particular, I sense that there's media negativity relating to active travel, or media negativity in some corners relating to climate change. And I wondered whether that perspective has had an impact on this work.
Yeah, thanks, Gwawr. I think that's a really important question. I would say during the period of development of the travel charters so far, it hasn't had much of an impact, but I do sense that it's going to have more of an impact over the next 2 or 3 years. I think the wider political situation, I shall not open up a debate now because it could run and run, but things like the 20-mile-an-hour policy, which broadly from a public health perspective is a very good policy, but in terms of implementation and public reception, there are questions over whether that is supportive of people supporting this kind of work as well. I think there is again, just as a slight aside, but I think there is a really important question about how some of these things are framed currently and for the next year or two, and whether sustainability and climate change is the right way to frame some of these things. So actually this is about healthier people and healthier staff and more productive staff. Actually the evidence for people who cycle to work actually have fewer sick days and are more productive in work. Those are both well published observations, good evidence for both of those. So there is something about, if we want to be really selfish from an employer perspective, these are really good things to do, but they're also good things to do for the staff members themselves as well, increase well-being and reduced disease. But no, you're absolutely right. I think I've been lucky that to date it hasn't been an issue, but I do foresee it becoming one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gra, and thanks, Tom. And a great point in terms of the framing of some of these issues and challenges as well, because it was quite stark to me, the chart that you presented at the start with the car travel, how travel is actually fully framed around the car journey. So again, that whole reframing approach and looking at it through a well-being and public health perspective, it is really important. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for that and for sharing the great work there. I'd just like to sum up now as we come to a close with 2 minutes to go, just to say thank you very much to all our speakers today, to Ollie, to Tom, to Jenny and to Naz. Really fantastic insights and presentations. Ollie has shared in the chat, you will see the evaluation form. So please do take a look at that and provide us with some feedback on the session. And also just to remind you again of the key sign up links. So please do take the time to visit the website. You can sign up for the newsletter, and also a reminder that you can register your interest for the learning set as well. So thank you very much. Richard, do you have a final question?
Yeah, just a quick question, hopefully. Yeah. So how soon will we hear back on if we've expressed an interest in the learning sets?
Good question. We are hoping to finalise the learning set by the end of July. So if you're interested, I would recommend signing up over the next couple of weeks. And then once we finalise the group at the end of July, if we get loads and loads of people interested, we will have to limit numbers, and we'll go with the people that we think will benefit most from the learning set. But we'll be in touch probably in the first week of August to let you know if you've got a spot on the learning set. And then the first session will be, I think it's the first week of September.
Thank you.
Fabulous. That's great. Yeah, thank you, Richard, for that question. And thanks, Ollie, for clarifying that. And thanks to everyone for joining today. Really appreciate your time and look forward to the next steps. Remember, the session's recorded, so please do share. If people weren't able to make the session today, please do share it with them so that they can watch it back. But otherwise, thank you very much and see you all soon. Take care. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.